Look at your watch. The hands are moving. The night is already shaping itself around us, minus quiet on the surface, but alive underneath. Tonight is not ordinary. Tonight carries the weight of decisions, the momentum of change, and the hidden turning points that separate those who wait from those who act. There's a rhythm to history, minus a cadence of opportunity that beats once, maybe twice, then moves on. Some nights pass like any other, lights out, phones down, life on repeat. But once in a while, a night comes that cracks the routine like thunder splits the sky. That night rearranges priorities. It exposes what truly matters. If you're awake to it, tonight will demand something of you. You may not feel called to stand on a stage or lead a crowd. Most of us don't. But every great shift begins in ordinary places: a quiet kitchen, a parked car, a hospital room, a dormitory desk. Tonight is where a private choice becomes public destiny. The decisions you make between dusk and dawn can echo. Like a prophecy, minus not because they were grand, but because they were faithful, bold, immediate. There are forces at work tonight you cannot see with your eyes. Winds of change gather in conversations you overhear, in messages you send, in the single step you take when fear tells you to stay. History is patient. It waits for people who refuse to be passive. And the truth is this: when the moment comes, hesitation is a luxury you cannot afford. So what does it mean to be ready tonight? First, clarity. Strip away the noise. Name what matters. Conviction is not loud only when broadcast, minus it is quiet and consistent when tested. Second, courage. Not the reckless kind, but the steady courage that chooses the right thing even when the consequence is uncertain. Third, action. Faith without movement is like a lamp under a bowl, minus its light, kept from the room. Don't mistake intensity for drama. This is not sensationalism. This is urgency when the map of your life shifts beneath your feet. Don't ask for better weather, minus you put on boots and move. You prepare, you align your relationships, your priorities, your resources. You make amends where necessary and press forward where called. Tonight may ask for sacrifice. It may demand endurance. It may call you to speak when silence would be easier, to forgive when anger screams louder, to serve when applause is absent. These are the small moments that compose a life that matters. They are the quiet revolutions that transform families, communities, nations. Listen, every moment is a test of who you will become. Some nights the test is obvious. Others, like this one, sit wrapped in everyday sounds, minus the hum of a fridge, the soft glow of a street lamp, the ping of a notification. But tests are tests whether they look dramatic or not. Your response is the answer. Now, look inward. Ask yourself plainly, if tonight were the night that defined the next 10 years of your life, what would you do differently? What would you stop? Who would you call? What truth would you finally speak? The enemy of destiny is the comfortable pattern. Break it. Replace it. Start. Remember, courage is contagious. One person who chooses rightly tonight loosens a chain that binds others. One voice that rises in truth gives permission for another to stand. We are not isolated islands, minus we are a chain of moments linked by one decision after another. Tonight, you can be the hinge. So prepare your heart, steady your hands, sharpen your mind. The hours ahead will not wait for your permission. They will test your faith, your resolve, your obedience. This is an invitation, not a threat, minus an invitation to step into a responsibility far bigger than convenience. Take it. Tonight is not just another passage of hours moving across a clock. It is a threshold, a divide between what was and what is about to become. There are moments in life that feel ordinary from the outside, yet inside them, something deeper is shifting. The sky may look the same. Streets may look the same. The room may be quiet, but beneath that surface, change is already in motion. This is the kind of night that asks you to wake up to reality. Not the shallow version of it, but the kind that presses on your conscience and reminds you that time is never standing still. A turning point does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it comes with silence. Sometimes it enters through a thought you cannot ignore, a burden you can no longer dismiss, a question you have avoided. For too long, that is how many lives change, not with fireworks, but with awareness, not with applause, but with conviction. The night becomes important because it reveals what the daylight has allowed you to overlook. It strips away distractions. It removes the comfort of delay. It confronts you with the fact that every season has an end and every door closes eventually. This is why tonight carries weight. It is not because the hour itself is magical. It is because moments like this expose the state of the heart. Some people move through life asleep, reacting only when everything has already shifted around them. But others recognize the pattern while it is still forming. They sense when a season is ending. They feel when a new assignment is beginning. They understand that a turning point does not always announce itself clearly. Sometimes it whispers first, and if you are wise, you lean in and listen. There is something powerful about standing at the edge of change. It forces honesty. You can no longer pretend that yesterday's choices will carry you through tomorrow's demands. You can no longer live on borrowed conviction. A turning point requires substance. It requires depth. It asks whether your foundation is strong enough to hold what is coming next. That is why nights like this matter. They do not simply pass through your life. They reveal what your life is built on. For some, this night will be remembered as the moment they finally saw clearly, the moment confusion started to lose its grip, the moment fear stopped making all the decisions, the moment they realized that staying where they were would cost them more than moving forward ever could. That is the power of a true turning point. It changes perspective before it changes circumstances. It shifts the inner world first, and then the outer world begins to follow. So do not treat this night casually. Do not let it slip by as though nothing is happening. Pay attention. Be alert. Ask what this moment is trying to teach you. Ask what it is exposing. Ask what must change before the dawn arrives. Because the nights that matter most are often the ones that quietly separate the distracted from the prepared, the passive from the purposeful, the uncertain from the ready. And maybe that is the real message of this hour. Life will not always wait for your comfort before it calls you higher. Some nights are given to awaken you, to shake off delay, to remind you that tomorrow is built by what you choose. Right now, urgency is powerful only when it is disciplined. If it becomes panic, it loses its strength. If it becomes noise, it stops being wisdom. True urgency does not scream for attention. It steadies the heart and sharpens the mind. It reminds you that time is real, that choices have weight. And that delay often costs more than discomfort ever will. There are moments when you do need to move quickly, but quick movement without direction only creates confusion. What makes urgency meaningful is purpose. It is the understanding that this moment matters, and because it matters, it must be handled with clarity, not chaos. A person who understands urgency does not collapse under pressure. They focus, they simplify, they stop wasting energy on what does not belong to the moment. That is the difference between reaction and readiness. Reaction is emotional, scattered, and often driven by fear. Readiness is calm, alert, and intentional. It knows that something important is unfolding, but it refuses to let anxiety take the lead. This is the kind of urgency that changes lives. It is not the kind that burns out in a few minutes. It is the kind that sustains action long enough for real transformation to happen. Many people confuse urgency with frustration. They think being urgent means being loud, aggressive, or restless. But urgency at its highest level is actually a form of discipline. It is the ability to recognize what matters most and refuse to let lesser things steal the moment. When urgency is healthy, it does not make you reckless. It makes you precise. You begin to speak differently. You listen differently. You move with greater awareness. You stop treating important things as though they can wait forever. You understand that opportunity can be missed not only by ignoring it, but also by delaying too long. There is a kind of danger in comfort that people rarely talk about. Comfort can make you careless. It can convince you that later will always be available. It can whisper that you still have time when, in reality, the moment is already passing. Urgency interrupts that lie. It says, wake up, pay attention. This cannot be handled casually. Not every situation demands fear, but some situations absolutely demand seriousness. That seriousness is not negative. It is protective. It keeps you from drifting while the moment that could have changed everything slips away. When the atmosphere around you feels heavy, uncertain, or pressing, the worst thing you can do is become passive. Urgency is what pushes against passivity. It reminds you that movement matters. If a door opens, walk through it. If a truth becomes clear, respond to it. If a responsibility is placed before you, do not postpone obedience. This is where many people lose ground, not because they lack talent, but because they hesitated too long. Urgency is the antidote to that hesitation. It brings you back to the reality that certain moments will not return. And yet, urgency must remain. Controlled, a fire can warm a house or destroy it. The same is true of urgency. When guided properly, it brings life, momentum, and focus. It keeps you awake to what matters and away from what distracts. It helps you identify the difference between what is important now and what can wait. That kind of clarity is rare, but it is essential. In a world that constantly pulls attention in every direction, the ability to stay urgent without becoming frantic is a form of strength. So, let this moment call you higher, not louder. Let it move you toward action, not disorder. Let it create momentum, not confusion. Because when urgency is purified by purpose, it becomes one of the most powerful forces in human life. There comes a moment in every life when the pressure is so real, so immediate, that you can no longer borrow someone else's conviction to carry you through. The crowd falls quiet. The opinions of others stop mattering. The external noise fades. And all that remains is you, the moment, and the decision only you can make. This is what pressure does at its highest level. It isolates the essential. It removes what is borrowed and reveals what is genuinely yours. And in that stripped down space, personal decision becomes the most powerful force in the room. Most people understand decision making in theory. They know they should be bold. They know they should be disciplined. They know that their choices shape their future. But knowing and doing are separated by something most. People underestimate the weight of the actual moment. When the pressure is real, when the stakes are visible, when the cost of choosing correctly is uncomfortable, that is when character is truly tested, not in the planning stages, not in the comfortable conversations, but in the pressure of the actual moment, when everything inside you is being examined at once. Under pressure, two kinds of people emerge. The first kind searches for an exit. They look for a reason to delay, a justification to avoid a comfortable explanation for why now is not the right time. These are not bad people. They are simply unprepared for the weight of the moment. The second kind leans in. They feel the pressure, acknowledge it honestly, and then make a decision anyway. They do not pretend the weight is not there. They carry it and move forward regardless. That second kind of person is who this moment is looking for tonight. Personal decision under pressure is not about being emotionless. It is not about pretending you are not afraid or uncertain. The bravest decisions in history were not made by people who felt nothing. They were made by people who felt everything and chose correctly anyway. That distinction matters enormously. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act in the presence of it. And when you make a decision under real pressure with full awareness of what it costs, that decision carries a different kind of authority. It shapes your identity. It tells your own spirit who you are. There is also something deeply important about ownership. When a decision is made under pressure and it is truly yours, something changes in how you carry it forward. You do not second guess it the way you second guess a borrowed opinion. You do not abandon it the way you abandon a shallow commitment. Because you know what it cost you to make it. You remember the moment you stood at the edge and chose. That memory becomes a reference point for every future decision. It tells you that you are capable of more than comfort has allowed you to believe. So tonight, as the pressure of this moment presses against your chest, do not retreat from it. Do not manage it from a distance, step into it. Allow it to reveal what you are made of. Ask honestly what this moment requires of you, and then answer that question with everything you have. Not because someone is watching, not because the results are guaranteed, but because this is your moment, your decision, and your responsibility. The pressure you feel tonight is not your enemy. It is an invitation. It is asking whether you are ready to move from being someone who understands to someone who acts. From someone who believes in theory to someone who lives it out loud, the decision is yours. The moment is now. And who you choose to be under this pressure will echo far beyond tonight. Faith, courage, and action are not three separate ideas standing alone. They are one movement, one chain, one living response to a moment that demands more than words. Faith begins where sight ends. Courage begins where comfort breaks. Action begins where hesitation dies. If any one of these is missing, the others weaken. Faith without courage becomes passive. Courage without action becomes empty. Action without faith becomes restless and short-lived. But when all three are joined together, something strong is born inside a person. And that strength can carry them through seasons that would otherwise crush them. Faith is not just agreeing with what sounds good, it is trusting what you cannot fully control. It is standing on a promise before you see the proof. It is remaining steady when the ground beneath you feels uncertain. Real faith does not pretend the storm is not there. It looks at the storm and still says, I will not be moved. That kind of confidence is rare because it does not come from circumstances. It comes from conviction. It comes from a deeper place that says there is meaning here, even if the meaning is not visible yet. Faith allows a person to keep moving when logic says stop. It gives the soul a direction when the map is incomplete. Courage, then, is faith under pressure. It is what faith looks like when it has to walk through risk. Courage is not built on perfect conditions. It is revealed in imperfect ones. It shows up when fear is real, when the cost is uncertain, when the path forward is not easy to predict. Courage is not loud confidence for display. It is quiet strength for survival. It is the ability to stand, speak, decide, and endure when every lesser instinct says to retreat. A courageous person does not need every answer before taking the next step. They only need enough truth to move faithfully. Action is where the invisible becomes real. A person may believe deeply and feel strongly, but if nothing changes, then all that conviction remains trapped inside. Action is the proof that faith and courage have taken root. It is the decision to move, to build, to speak, to forgive, to begin again. Action is often small at first, a message sent, a habit broken, a prayer spoken, a boundary set, a step taken. But these small actions are how entire lives shift. No meaningful change ever happens without movement. Standing still may feel safer, but it rarely leads anywhere new. The hardest part for many people is not believing in change. It is becoming willing to move before change is visible. That is where faith, courage, and action meet. You trust first, you stand firm, and then you move. Not because everything is settled, but because something inside you knows this is the right response. This is how people become stronger than their fear. This is how they stop waiting for perfect timing and start honoring the moment they have been given. Action does not require certainty. It requires commitment, and commitment changes everything. Once you choose to act in line with your faith, your whole life begins to take shape differently. You become less dependent on moods and more anchored in purpose. You stop living as though the future is controlled by chance. You start living as though your steps matter. That is the beginning of real strength. Not noise, not appearance, not empty resolve, but faith that stands, courage that holds, and action that moves. This is the moment to stop delaying what you already know needs to be done. The path ahead will not reward passivity. It will reward the ones who believe enough to stand enough to move, and move enough to become.